Hi everybody and welcome. We're just back from the Houting launch, where it was good to see loads of users after so many years. The last 3 years of course have been online only. A couple of admin points before we look at what we've got in Caddie 29 for you. First of all, as usual, it's time to end of life one of our previous products, Caddie 26 this year. As you probably know, we keep the current version and the last 2 versions maintained, so if anybody is still using Caddie 26, support will be stopped for that at the end of the year. One thing I'm sure you're familiar with is our cloud licensing program, which allows you to have your license up in the cloud on one of our servers, and then you can just sign in from any machine wherever you have Caddie loaded, and if you have a free license available, it'll use it. You can check out licenses if you want to go to somewhere where you don't have internet access, or you can just use it direct from the cloud. This has been ideal for people working from home or flexibly with no risk of loss or theft for their licenses. A couple of things that you may or may notice we've been up to during the year. Our website's had an upgrade with a new look and feel, with all the classroom-based courses on a calendar. We've created many videos, with over 280,000 views of the Caddie videos on our caddiesoftware.com YouTube channel. We've also introduced a number of new online training courses. Now we have the Getting Started, the Survey, the DTM, View, AEC and GIS. A couple of our continuing initiatives that are worth mentioning. We offer free educational software for any registered students, and our student placement software license program, which allows employers who have students coming to work for them for short periods of time to have access to a full Caddie professional. And of course, those students can access one of our training courses. As far as development is concerned, we're partway through a multi-year project to update our graphics engine, which will give us much more performance in a future version. But for 29, we have more catalogue content. We have STL for 3D printing, that's been improved. Our RAID product that analyzes data and creates heat maps. We have many enhancements to our View photorealistic rendering. And we have a whole load of new land survey tools courtesy of cadastral computing. The GIS, which was introduced over the last couple of years, gives us complete integration between GIS and CAD, giving you the information that you need without leaving your desk. We've added support for solids and surfaces and a completely new PDF export, which gives us smaller file size, faster export, higher quality, better security, and also 3D content. We have a fabulous community of users giving us lots of pointers as to what you want to see. It's interesting to see that the highest number of requests is for making presentation drawings more quickly from models. It's getting more difficult to win jobs, but those spending time on higher quality presentation appear to be the ones booming. Most of the functionality you see today is from user requests. So over the next 12 months, we're going to be working on the graphics engine integration, a lot of user requests, IFC improvements, some emerging technologies that we keep watching, the digital twins, Internet of Things, AI, 3D printing, and much more. So keep your wishes coming, and hopefully you'll see the stuff that you ask for being built into a future version of Caddie. So now let me hand over to Charles, who'll give you a run through of some of the new features in Caddie 29. Thank you very much.
Good day everyone. With the compatibility between CAD systems, you may find that when you open a drawing, you can end up with polylines and lines. So that's the first thing I'm going to show you, how to convert lines and polylines to polylines, because it can be a PDF that you convert it to a drawing. That's if it's a vector PDF. So if I'm going to switch off the image in the background, I'm going to ask Caddie just to show me some lines. I'm going to say OK. I'm going to select these lines. In my object properties, Caddie will confirm there's some lines and there's also polylines. So while it's selected, I can just right click and I'm going to ask Caddie to go to make and say make polylines from line arcs and polylines. So if I now say Ctrl A, Caddie will confirm they are all polylines. And then I want to show you that when it comes to your contours, I'm going to say OK. Have a look and see that if I'm going to zoom in over here, it's actually an existing command I'm going to show you now. I've got openings between these contours. So if I'm going to measure between let's say we take the biggest opening. Now I would say it's this opening over here. So if I take the gap between that opening, Caddie will confirm now that's 0.6 meters. So the command I'm going to reintroduce to you is under modify. We go down to lines and then there's an option that says make polylines from line and arcs. But in this dialog, we can ask Caddie for a maximum gap. So my selection is going to be a rectangle. I'm going to say use original color. My pattern for new objects is going to be current, and then as you can see, I'm going to give it a maximum of 0.8 because I've measured 0.6. So as soon as I'm going to say OK, Caddie will ask me indicate diagonal corners. So now I just need to make sure that my selection box is inside the vicinity of those openings. As you can see, all 4 of them are covered inside, and as soon as I'm going to left click, it fixes the connections. In this exercise, I'm going to make use of a GIS drawing. So what that means is my data source, I've just bring in a Bing satellite in the background, as well as a shapefile that I've imported into the drawing. Now the content of this drawing is normal. If I go to object properties, you will see those are polylines. But the enhancement I'm going to show you is applicable to any object. Now when you're doing the training, we teach you how to do selection from right to left. So if I select from right to left, it will select whatever is inside the vicinity of a rectangle box, as well as what it crosses. And if you select from left to right, it will only select where the start point and the end point is inside the vicinity of the selection box. And then there's also an option that says inside polygon, that if you want to be more specific about an area. But these are all existing commands I'm showing you. E for end. But the enhancement I want to show you is that you can now select by polyline. So first of all, you're going to start your selection, and if we read the command line, Caddie will ask you indicate opposite corner of rectangle, I for inside polygon that I just showed you, C for crossing polygon, or crossing P for polyline. So I'm going to press P for polyline, and the advantage of it is you can select multiple events, and I can go down and I can give it a step. E for end, it select what I'm looking for, right click, and I can go to layering and display, and I'm going to ask Caddie display only selected objects, and I can then carry on working. Everybody uses delete segment. Now the enhancement in Caddie 29 is that now you can delete multiple segments by using a polyline profile. So on the left hand side, and a modifier, you get the delete segment command. Caddie will ask you indicate segment to be deleted. So if I'm going to zoom in, instead of indicate one by one, I can just press M on the keyboard, and Caddie will ask us draw polyline through elements to delete segments. So I indicate the start point, indicate the end point, E for end, and it delete the segments. If I use the fan as a sample, I'm going to zoom in, I'm going to click on the command, Caddie will ask us indicate segment to be deleted, but I'm going to press M for multiple. For crossing, indicate the start point, end point, E for end, and it get rid of those segments. Now what I like about this command or the enhancement is that, as you can see, I can even give it a profile, a step. So once again, activate the command, M for multiple, indicate the start point of your polyline profile, and as you can see, I can follow the path that I want to delete those segments, E for end, and it delete the segments. Similar as with when it comes, say for instance, a rail track, I would like to delete between those white lines. I'm going to click on a command, it will ask us indicate segment to be deleted. I'm going to zoom in, M for multiple, indicate the start point of your polyline profile, and I go all the way down to the bottom, E for end, and it delete those segments. When it comes to text, everybody uses text. So what I'm going to show you now is, it's not a new enhancement or a new feature, it's just to make life easier for yourself. And that is that if I'm going to zoom in this drawing, those that are familiar with the Caddie fonts will recognize the font. This is a Caddie freehand font. Now it can either be that you decided in-house that all the fonts have to change to Arial, or you need to give the drawing to another CAD system that doesn't support the freehand font. So it can be that you're going to say, but Charles, let's go Control A, and I'm going to select my M text, and I'm going to change my style to a different text style. But then you're going to change all your text styles. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to show you how to just edit this one style. Now, when you're going to edit this one style, it will not only be applicable to your model space, but also on your sheet. And that's the advantage, because at the moment, as you can see, if I'm going to select the text on my sheet, I'm also using text style 29. So if I go back to my model space, the command we're going to use is the normal text set command. So you're going to go to annotate, text set, and under my styles, I'm going to select the text style 29. I'm going to go manage, and now you will see that at the moment it's using the freehand Caddie font. So we're going to change to TrueType font. Let's go down to Arial, And while it's a true type font, remember you can right click and I can ask Caddie, let's make it bold as well as italic for that matter. As soon as I'm going to say OK, I will look and see what happens wherever style 29 is used. So I'm going to say OK, it updates my font. I'm going to say OK, and that is also applicable where I use it on my sheet. So if I go R for regen, as you can see, that update, and now it's make using of Arial. Another very nice feature, or this is definitely an enhancement, and that is that when it comes to mirror object, if I'm going to select the content, previously if you're going to copy it, let's say right click copy, indicate the start point, and I would like to mirror it now. If I right click and I'm going to say and mirror, now Caddie has an option that says if you would like to mirror the text. Most of the time you don't want to mirror the text, but if you would like to, then you can ask Caddie to mirror the text. So I'm going to say OK, and I can place it. So as you can see, it did mirror my picture, and my text is horizontal as well as it's readable. So let's just make use of this one over here. To select the content, you right click, you say copy, indicate the start point, right click and mirror. I don't want to mirror the text. If I'm going to say OK and I place my text, as you can see in both scenarios, the text is readable. Then we've got option that you can add what we call transparency to text. Now that's from the start. It may be that, say for instance, you would like to send this drawing to a client or print to PDF, but you would like to have something like a watermark on your sheet. So if I go to my object properties on the right hand side, if I'm going to set my transparency to 60%, it means that anything, either if I'm going to draw something or text, hatch, dimensions, lines, everything will be transparent from the start. So if I'm going to go to my text, I'm going to say enter text, and I'm going to say, let's call this one a sample drawing. I'm going to give it an angle of 45. So I'm going to say OK, and I can place my text on the drawing, and as you can see, the text is transparent, not only on the sheet, but you can apply to your model space as well. Now when it comes to opaque, or known as wipeouts, you'll notice that some of our 2D symbols from the catalog, as well as some of the commands, contains opaques. So under the SI arc, 2D plan, and I go to my wall parameters, bottom left hand side there's an option that says use opaques for windows and doors. So what that means is whenever you're going to bring in a door, this is normal 2D command from Caddie, and let's bring in a window as well, just a quick window, and let's make it slightly bigger, NC12. Now you will see that within that block, because these symbols that you see here, they are blocks, but inside that block there's an opaque. Now it doesn't matter if I'm going to move my symbol now, that's the advantage of using opaques, it will update what's behind it, because the opaque wipe out or blank out all the way to the back, as well as if you're going to delete the symbol, you don't have to redo the hatch. So that is the advantage of using opaques. Now in this exercise, what you're going to make use of, as you can see, I made use of an image, and then I did my sweep path analysis. But now I would like to blank out some of these cars or these areas. I don't want to see those cars. So I've added the opaque. Now the command itself is under annotate, opaque wipeout, and the command says create opaque. Now it's an existing command, so I'm just going to switch on my opaque. But what I show you now is that each and every opaque has got a border. So if I go to my sheet that I've created, the viewport, I'm going to ask Caddie for print preview. Now in this preview, as you can see, the border of my opaque prints in a dark black pen color. So I want to see the border, but I don't want to plot the border. So that's the enhancement in Caddie 29. So if I'm going to go back to my model space, now you can decide either in this current drawing, or you can set it as drawing default. So let's do it for this current drawing first. So if I go to my current drawing setting, it's only applicable to this drawing. I'm going to ask Caddie, when it comes to my opaque, so you just double left click, up to Caddie 29, you add don't show and you add show. So new to 29 is show but don't plot. So I'm going to set it to show but don't plot. I'm going to say OK. So if I now go to my sheet, F7 or file print, I'm going to say preview, you will see that it doesn't show the dark black border. So that is in the current drawing. Otherwise, you can just go to configure, drawing defaults, and you'll see on your bottom left hand side there's an option that says opaque borders. And as you can see now, I can set it to show but don't plot. So any drawing from here onwards will show the border, but the border won't plot. When it comes to clipping a picture, now this is the existing command, but I'll show you now the enhancement, because let's say on the right hand side, I'm going to see this as my working drawing. I'm going to clip this image, and then I would like to use the border of this clipping image on another image as well. Or it can be that you receive a clipped image and then you're going to convert it to a polyline, and you're going to use that clip border on another image as well. So let's take it from the start. So you're going to select the picture, you're going to right click, you go down to picture, and you're going to say clip picture by point. As I said, this is the existing command. So we're going to indicate the boundaries that I would like to create, and then you'll see where the enhancement comes in. So let's say we go up to there and up to there. E for end, and now I've got my clipped image. So the new enhancement is that you're going to select that clipped image, you're going to right click, you go down to picture, and you'll see there's a new command added that says create polyline from clipping boundary. Now I can see the polyline, but let's just unclip the picture so you can see it clearly. Unclip picture, press escape, and there's my polyline. So now I can select that polyline, C for copy, and I can use it on another image as well. So that is the enhancement, is that you can create a polyline boundary from a clipped image. Another instance that's also very handy is that you may use an image in the background, as you can see in this case. Now if I'm going to select this picture, there's a lot of points already added to this clipping boundary. So if I'm going to convert it now to a polyline, go down to picture, I'm going to ask Caddie to create polyline from clipping boundary, and I'm going to ask Caddie to unclip this picture again. Let's go to picture, unclip picture. We'll see that there's some trees in the background that's not included of my first clipping boundary. So now because it's a polyline, I can select the polyline and I can make adjustments to the polyline, what I want to include now. And now I'm going to ask Caddie to make use of this polyline profile as my clipping boundary. So I'm going to right click on the picture, we go down to picture, and I'm going to ask Caddie clip picture by object. So Caddie will ask us indicate clipping object. So I'm going to click on the polyline, and as you can see now it created a new boundary for the image. For the users that attend the Caddie 25 launch, this exercise might look familiar, because in Caddie 25 clients ask that if you've got closed polylines, as you can see if I select the one rectangle, Caddie confirms polyline closed, that when you're going to fill an area with a hatch, that Caddie auto-detect the closed polylines and create islands of those polylines. So I'm just quickly going to recap. We're just going to make use of a full color. My apply is set to inside and my island mode is set to auto. So all I do is I'm going to drag it, drop it, and I've filled the area. Then up to Caddie 25, you select the hatch, you right click, we go down to hatch, and we ask Caddie to add remove islands. And then we have the option that says auto detect closed polylines, and it creates the islands. So now the enhancement in Caddie 29 is that if we want to reverse it, so all you have to do is you can select the existing hatch, you're going to right click your CSM, we go down to hatch, and now you use the same command that says add remove island, but in that list you will see that there's a new one that says remove all islands. So I'm going to click on the command, and as you can see, it gets rid of all the islands, regardless if it's a closed polyline or if it's a circle profile or any profile, it gets rid of all the islands inside that hatched area. When it comes to adding your hatch patterns, sometimes you would like your patterns to align, so I'm going to make use of a normal pattern hatch. Now if I'm going to make use of the brick pattern first, if I'm going to drag it, drop it inside, as you can see my angle is set to 0, so it's horizontal. So if I'm going to bring it into an area that's at an angle, it will display my pattern at the angle of 0, because the properties when I've created this pattern hatch was set to 0. Now the enhancement to Caddie 29 is that even if I'm bringing in the pattern hatch, I'm going to drop it inside, I'm not finished. If I read the command line, Caddie will ask us indicate the inside area for hatch or island, but the new enhancement is that I can press H on the keyboard to change the angle. So I'm going to press H on the keyboard, and Caddie will ask us indicate first point for angle, indicate the second point, and then Caddie will change the direction of the hatch according to your 2 points. So once again, you're on the right hand side. If I'm going to drag and drop my pattern inside, it will show horizontal, but if I read the command line and I make use of the H on the keyboard to change the angle, indicate the first point, indicate the second point, and as you can see, it changed the direction of the hatch, so it's now parallel according to those 2 points. Another example is, say for instance, a ceiling tile. So I'm going to drag and drop, because as you can see, I've got 3 different angles here. This one is horizontal. I'm happy with this one. I'm going to indicate the second one, but now I would like to change the angle, so I'm going to press H on the keyboard, indicate the first point, indicate the second point, and then I'm going to indicate the third area I want to fill, but I want to change the angle, H on the keyboard, indicate the first point, indicate the second point. And remember, at any stage you can select hatch and you can change the origin, so I would like those to align. So I'm going to select the existing hatch, right click, we go down to hatch, and beside move origin, and I'm going to indicate the new origin. Let's go to this side as well. I'm going to select the existing hatch, right click, we go down to hatch, I'm going to say move origin. This is the existing command. It's just bring under your attention that if for some reason you would like your pattern hatch to align, after you set the angle, it still can be done. When it comes to working with transparency, the majority make use of 2 options. Option 1 will be working by layer. So if I go to my layer set, you've got your layer name, you can work color by layer, and then you see this option that says transparency. Now as you can see, all of them are set to 0 except layer 128. 128 has got a transparency set to 35%. That means anything that's getting drawn on that layer will have a transparency of 35%. Regardless if it's lines, text, hatch, dimensions, any object will have a transparency. So that's option number 1. Option number 2 is, as you can see on the right hand side, I haven't applied transparency to it. So up to Caddie 28, you select the object, and in object properties, you go down in the list and you're going to ask Caddie, when it comes to my transparency, let's make this object 50% transparent. And as you can see, it did update. So new to Caddie 29 is that if you're going to go to your quick hatch, you will see I've already set up some pre-settings for my hatches that I used here on the left hand side. So now I'm going to show you how to add your own new hatch. So you're going to right click, you're going to say add to list, and you're going to say add full hatch. Now this is not only applicable to full, it can be a pattern as well. As you can see on the right hand side, the new enhancement is your transparency option. So if it's set by layer, it means it will look at what is your layer setting. Like I showed you, 128 will have a 35% and transparent. If it's set to default, it means the color you see is the color it's going to use, so there's no actually transparency to it. Or I can ask Caddie that doesn't matter on what layer I'm going to make use of, that this particular green RGB color will have a transparency of 50%. So I'm going to say OK, it's added to the list. I make use of layer 130. So if I go back to the set, just so you can see 130, there's no transparency. So I'm going to say zoom in, and depends on what is your setting, drag or click. So I'm going to indicate where I want to apply the hatch, and as you can see, there's a transparency to it. So let's just finish up with this drawing. Let's add some there, and let's add one there, and some hatch over there. So now you notice that there's some what we call closed objects. Now we're going to apply a shadow to it. This last color that you see in the list, that one is set to by layer. I'm going to change to layer 128 because I know it's got a transparency of 35%. So all I have to do is I'm going to say click, indicate my closed object, and as you can see, it already gives us a preview of the transparency. I'm just apply to these closed objects. I'm going to zoom in. Alright, apply to all of them. Now I make use of layer states, so I'm just going to switch off those lines that you see there. So there's our end product by adding transparency to your hatch from the start. The enhancement when it comes to working with blocks is that you can now move the content of multiple blocks to one layer by just using one command. Because previously, up to Caddie 28, if you go to your modify block arrays, you had a command that says change layer of objects in blocks. You indicate the destination layer, you say OK, but then Caddie asks you indicate block to change object layer. So then you have to go and click on each and every block. So what I'm going to show you now is in this drawing, if I just select the content, there's 1038 blocks. So that's going to take a while for go and click on each and every one. So before I'm going to show you the enhancement, let's just recap when it comes to the basics for using layers in your blocks. Now in this drawing, if I'm going to select the content, you will see it's 6 polylines. Now each and every polyline is on a different layer. The ones, they are on layer 1. The 2s, they are on layer 2, and the 3s on layer number 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to create 2 blocks. First of all, let's make it interesting. I'm on layer 8, that's my active layer. So if I'm going to select the content, I'm going to right click and I'm going to ask Caddie to make a block. What will happen is as follows. First, you're going to give it a name, let's call it the block 1. And I'm going to ask Caddie to use the center point of objects for my origin, and on the right hand side allow exploding. So I'm going to say OK. If I select my block, left click, Caddie will tell you block reference 1, and now have a look and see. We're going to go to layer display now. In this dialog, if I go to layer number 0, it shouldn't display anything. If I go to layer 1, it displays the content of layer 1. If I go to 2 and 3, it displays the content. If I go to layer 8, it won't show anything because the content is on layer 1 up to 3. So if I'm going to say all, select all. If I select the block, the origin or the control point of the block is on layer number 8, but the content is on layer 1, 2 and 3. So let's create another block. If I'm going to select the content, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go down to make, I'm going to say make block. Let's call this one block 2. I'm going to use the origin still in the center, but this time I'm going to ask Caddie move the objects to layer 0. So as soon as I'm going to say OK, once again, have a look and see my active layer remains layer 8. So I'm going to say OK. I'm going to left click just so you can see become a block reference. Now let's have a look and see. So if I go to layer display, go to layer 0, there's nothing. 1, there's nothing. 2, nothing. Because the content is actually on layer number 8. So that's when it comes to the rule that if you move the content of a block to layer 0, it will look at what is your active layer or where the origin of the block is, and it will display the content on that layer. So that's what we're going to do now in this exercise. Now different colors present different layers. So if I go to my layer set, you'll see that the colors that you can see here, green, yellow, cyan, etc. Those are the dedicated pen color for that layer. I just go to layer display and I'm going to toggle through the layers. Once again, as you can see, select the first one, and as I go through, it will display all the blocks on different layers. So we're going to move all the content of those blocks to layer 0. So I'm going to say select all, and we're going to say OK. So I can either go Control A and go and select the blocks, or you can select the content and you can select the blocks. Now once the blocks are selected, I'm going to right click, I'm going to go down to block, and this is where the new command is in the list, and it says change layers of objects in block. Caddie will ask us the destination layer, that will be on layer 0. I'm going to say OK, and as soon as I'm going to press R for regen, now you will see that all those blocks become white because under my layer set I've asked Caddie when it comes to the content on layer 0, the color need to be white. And on a more practical sample, as I start off with this video, is that if I'm going to say Control A now, and in my object properties, I'm going to ask Caddie to display the blocks for me, or keep the block selected. I can right click, I go down to blocks, I'm going to ask Caddie to change the layer of objects in blocks, we move it to layer 0, I'm going to say OK. And there we go. So I'll just change back. As you can see, if I go and select one of those blocks in my object properties, the layer confirms layer 0. And if I go to layer display and I go to layer 0, then there's all my blocks. Now that's another enhancement, that when it comes to working with blocks, is that when you pack a drawing, because at the moment I know that those blocks were on different layers. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask Caddie to pack the drawing. I go down, I'm going to say pack drawing. I'm going to pack the layers. I'm going to say pack. And now we should sit with only a few layers. I'm going to say OK. And on the top left hand side, as you can see, now we end up with only 3 layers because the content has been moved to layer 0, and when you pack a drawing, Caddie get rid of all the unused layers. When it comes to annotation or annotative objects, the main idea is that in your model space, you've got a drawing with one set of finishes. That can be your text, your hatch, your dimensions. And then as soon as you create your viewport, you would like to have a presentation, depends on the scale of that viewport. Say in this case 1:25 as well as 1:50, and you want the text to be exactly the same size or the same height. So if we recap on the basics, if I go back to the model space, we're going to add text. So on the left hand side, if I go to my annotate and I go to my text set, now this is for your text set, your leader set, your hatch set. You will see that there will always be an option that says annotative. Now if it's switched off, it means at the moment Caddie will create a text of 2.5 at the scale of 1:50. So it's only going to be one set of 1:50, 2.5 high. But if I'm going to change it to annotative, it means that although Caddie is going to look at your model space scale at the moment, Caddie will give you a presentation of 1:50 in your model space. But as soon as you create your viewport, you can add 1:10, 1:20, 1:100 to that particular text because the text is set to be annotative. So I'm going to say OK, and we're going to add text. So I'm going to go to my editor, and I'm going to add text called Caddie. As you can see in my editor, annotative is switched on. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to place my text. Now at the moment, if I select the text, you'll see that in your object properties, Caddie will tell you annotative is on, as well as the current scale is 1:50, because I haven't created a viewport yet from different scales. So let's create a viewport. So you can either go to view, make use of the normal command, or you can select the objects, right click, we go down to add to sheet, create viewport. I'm going to go to sheet 1, I'm going to say OK, and my first presentation is going to be 1:50. I'm going to say OK. Now before I say OK, have a look and see on the right hand side, Caddie asks us, add scale to annotative objects is ticked, so it will add a presentation of that text or the hatch, depends on what's annotative, to a scale of 1:50. I'm going to say OK, and I can place my viewport. I can go back, create a new port, or I can just ask Caddie to refresh the memory, and 1:25, and as you can see on the right hand side, my annotation scale update to 1:25 as well. I'm going to say OK, and I can place my viewport. Then the third one is going to be 1:10, change to 1:10, as you can see it updates. I'm going to say OK, and I can place my viewport. Now as you can see, the text as well as the hatch will display exactly the same because they are all set to be annotative, yes. So the origin of the text, as you can see, they share the same origin, so you can reposition the text in the viewport itself by just double left click. Now the reposition the text is only going to be applicable for that particular viewport. So the 1:50, I'm happy with the position. 1:25, I'm happy. So let's go to the 1:10, double left click. As you can see, as soon as the border becomes thicker, it means you're in edit mode through the viewport, and I can place a new position for my text. So there's my text now and my hatch. I've added my model space, one set of each, although I can use it in 3 different viewports with different scales, and they all present the same size. Now that's the idea of annotative. Now if I look in these 2 viewports, you will see that on the left hand side, I would like to remove the text here on the right hand side, as well as this portion of the text that I can see at the bottom. Now it may be that you can say, yeah, but you can select the border and you can reduce the viewport size, but I would like to keep mine the same viewport size. So I'm going to show you that you can hide the annotation scale from an object. So at the moment, as you can see, they present exactly the same height, although that's 2 different scales. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into edit mode. You're going to double click on the viewport. You're going to select the text, and I'm going to include the leader as well. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to ask Caddie, under my annotation scale, remove the current annotation scale. So as soon as I'm going to click on the remove annotation scale, R for regen, you'll see that although on the right hand side it remains 1:50, but on the left hand side I've removed the annotation scale from that object. So I can do the same here at the bottom left. I can select the component, right click, we go to annotation scale, and I'm going to ask Caddie remove current annotation scale, R for regen, and as you can see it did remove it. If for some reason you would like to recall the annotation finishes in that viewport, all you have to do is you can double left click, and then now edit mode. At the bottom right hand side in your status bar, there's an option that says show all annotation finishes. So because it will not remember the 125 because you removed the 125, it will make use of, say, the 150. So all we have to do is we can select the text and the leader. You're going to right click and you're going to ask Caddie to add it now. So on the annotation scale, there's an option that says add the current annotative scale. Click on a command, if I press escape, now the presentation that you see of the text and the leader has got an annotation scale of 125. And the same as here at the bottom, or I would like to get rid of this text, right click, annotation scale, remove current annotation scale, R for regen, and here we go. And now you can make even life more easier for yourself if you are familiar with levels. And that is, if I go to a new drawing, as you can see, I've got 3 viewports here, 1 in 100, 1 in 100, and 1 in 500. My site plan is 1 in 500. So if I go back to my model space, in this drawing, we've worked with levels. So we go to story 0, displays story 0. If I go to site plan, displays my set of layers for site plan. If I go to my setup, or the configuration, you will see that you can add your levels, and then the new enhancement in Caddie 29 is that you can add an anno scale to that particular level. So as you can see, site plan at the moment has got an annotation scale of 1 in 500. So if I'm going to say OK, now because my site plan is my active level, I can just add the text, and the text will be automatically be added to the scale of 1 in 500. So I'm just say new building. I'm going to say OK, and I can place my text. So if I now go back to my sheets, and I'm going to ask it to display all layers, you will see that under my viewport of 1 in 500, it did add the text, but the text is excluded from the 2 viewports 1 in 100 because the annotation for that particular text is only 1 in 500. When you're doing the online training course or you attend an in-house training session, we teach you how to create your own custom menu. As you can see, there is a toolbar I've created, or you can customize the custom menu itself to add your commands to the custom menu, or alternatively you can create shortcut keys. So if I go down in the list, as you can see, there's a list of your hard-coded shortcut keys, and then at the bottom you get your user-defined shortcut keys. Now as you can see, G, I've assigned G for recent commands. Now what that means is that previously, if you right click in your command line, Caddie will always display your recent commands as well as your most used commands, as well as on the CSM. If you right click, you go down to recent, Caddie will show you the last 10 recent commands. So I'm going to show you now where's the setting. I've assigned G, so that means as soon as I'm going to press G on my keyboard, Caddie will give me my list of my recent commands as well as my most used commands. So the setting itself, I'm going to double check under my environment settings. So you're going to go configure environment settings. In this dialog, we go down to recent frequent, and then you will see there's an option that says show frequent commands, set to yes, and show recent commands. So if you want to switch off one of those, you can just double left click on the yes, and you can change it at the bottom to no. I want to see both, so I'm going to keep them to yes, and now I'm going to show you how to assign it to a shortcut key. So you right click where there's no toolbar, we go down to customize, and in this dialog we're going to go to keyboard, and then under my category we go down all the way to the bottom. You will find the invisible Caddie, and then the commands itself, as you scroll down, we go down to R, R for recent, and as you can see, G is already assigned. The R is already assigned because R is for refresh or regen. So if you're going to make use of a key that's already assigned and you say assign, Caddie will tell you cannot use this accelerator, it's already assigned in a caddie.ks file. So if you would like to stick to the R, then I would say replace it with, say for instance, Shift R or Control R. But I would like to make use of a single key, so I'm going to assign G. I know G is not assigned, so I'm going to say assign, Caddie accept the assignment, I'm going to say close. So every time I'm going to press G on the keyboard, Caddie will give me my list of last 10 recent commands as well as my most used commands. Now where's it handy? Not always is that you've got all your commands assigned on your toolbar or on your custom menu. It may be that you're following a path, like in this exercise we're going to go apps, SARC 2D, we go to plan, I'm going to make use of calculate room size. Caddie brings up the dialog, I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to indicate the area I'm going to measure, P for end, and I place my room size. Now I'm going to press escape. Now we also teach you that if you press spacebar, it means repeat previous command. But now I would like to make use of another command, so I'm going to say enter text. I would like to add text, built-in cupboard, BIC. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to place my text. Now I would like to add my room size in this room. Now instead of going that long path, apps, SIArc, 2D, all I have to do is I can just press G on the keyboard and you will see there's my room size. So I'm going to click on the command. Once again I say OK, indicate first point, next point, E for end, because this is a square room size, and I can place my text. Now I would like to place or add text, so either I can make use of my shortcut key on my toolbar, or even for that matter if I press G again, you will see that your text editor will be in the list as well. So now I can say BIC as well. I'm going to say OK, and I can place my text. That's the advantage of assigning your recent commands as well as your most used commands to a shortcut key on your keyboard. More users starts to work with layers. So with this exercise, I'm going to introduce to you a command that we call remap of layers. Now, if you look in this drawing, the layer setup here on the left hand side, you will see that the layer names, there's a lot of layers as well as long layer names. If you work with layers, then you probably make use of a template. So each and every time you're getting drawing from this client, the layer structure is exactly the same. So what we're going to do is we're going to remap the layers so that the new layer names show. So I'm first going to show you on a blank drawing, and then we're going to come back to this sample. So if I look at my current drawing, as you can see I've got only a few, but I'm going to rename the first two. So the command is under manage, we go down to remap layers, and then you'll see there's an option that says create layer remapping file. So we're going to create this INI file. I'm going to call it new test. I'm going to say save, and now it will open in a notepad, as you can see, a text file. Now this is your current drawing layers that I just showed you. So Caddie shows you the old name, and now it asks you what will be the new name. So I'm just going to call this one new 1, and on layer number 2 I'm going to say new 2, and on layer 3 new 3. And now I'm going to save this file. File save. I'm going to close this text file, and now I would like to apply it, because at the moment I've just looked at the text file and I've updated it. So now we're going to go to manage again, and now you'll see there's an option that says apply layer remapping file. I'm going to click on the command. I'm going to indicate the text file that we've created. I'm going to say open. It applies it. So if I now going to look at my drop down, now you will see that there's a new layer names. So every time when you're getting a drawing or from a client that's using a template with the same layer structure, you can just run this command that says manage remap layer, apply the layer remapping, because it looks for the existing layer and gives it a new name. So let's apply to the sample. So just to show to you, as you can see, nothing I've changed. It's got still the same structure I showed you, but I've already created a new INI file that you're going to apply to this drawing. So we go to manage, we go down to remap layers, and I'm going to say apply layer remapping file. This is the file we've updated. I'm going to say open. It runs through the commands, and if you now want to look at the drop down, now you can see all the layers has got now new smaller layer names. If you're doing the online training course, Caddie will ask you to go to help, online learning, and go to open online training exercise files. Now up to Caddie 28, if you go to your view subfolder, Caddie displays all the modules as you can see there. Now, some of them contains materials, some contains textures, some pictures, so it's not part of the exercises, it's just you have to have it in that folder so Caddie can retrieve the materials or the texture. So on the right hand side, you've got the option that says only show exercise. So if I'm going to switch that on, I go to my view, now you'll see it will only display the exercises that you have to do under the view online training course. On the rendering side, you'll see that in the status bar at the bottom, your display configuration, you'll see that there's a new option available that's called View Plan. Now, I'm first going to give you the demonstration, and then I'll show you how to activate it if it's for existing drawing. So I'm going to go to a top view. I think let's split this view for us to a 3 left, that means my master is on the left hand side. As you can see, that's going to be my top plan, and on the top right hand side view I would like to give it front left view, and at the bottom we want rear back view. There we go. So on the left hand side now, as you can see, my viewport itself, the setting is set to medium detail. So I'm going to change it to view plan. So I'm going to click on view plan, and then I'm also going to switch on my perspective mode. Now as soon as I switch on my perspective mode, you might pick up on the walls itself. You can control that perspective length. If I go to change perspective lens length, now as you can see, as I'm going to increase, decrease, it gives you a preview. Now I'm just going to keep mine around about 30. I'm going to say close, and then what we're going to do is we're going to hit render. So on my left hand side we go to view, my environment set is a day clear sky, and I make use of natural light, very default, and I'm going to say OK, and we're going to hit render. And you can see on the left hand side is now the new display configuration that's called the view plan. As you can pick up the shadows, time was set to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and that is now the new view plan preview. If you look at all three of the renders, let's go to this drawing. As you can see, there's on the right hand side is my left front view, my rear back view. Those are normal default render settings that is set to your medium detail, and then on the left hand side is the new view plan. Now if I go back to the drawing itself, if for some reason you don't have the option, if you go down to the bottom in your status bar, you don't have the view plan option, it means it's not saved in your drawing yet. So all you have to do is you go to file, drawing utilities, and you'll see at the bottom there's an option that says reset display configuration. So if you want to open one of your existing 3D models, open the drawing, please follow this path, drawing utilities, reset display configuration, and then the view plan will be added to your list. On the rendering side or the view side, most of you have maybe experienced it, is that if you open an old drawing and you hit render, Caddie comes up with a message and tell you some materials have missing texture files. Would you like to remap the texture files? So if you say yes, you will see that Caddie will give you a list of the missing materials or the textures. Now as you can see, I've got an E drive and I've got a C drive. Now, maybe you rename a folder, or you've deleted a folder, or you remap your drive. So now I'm going to show you the enhancement in Caddie 29, because let me just close this, because now you will have an option that when you open a drawing, you can ask Caddie that under your environment set, if you go to your folders and we go down to materials texture folder, and I'm going to click on those three dots, double left click, Caddie will ask you, or you can tell Caddie, use custom folders to find textures in. So what that means is, you can tell Caddie, now I'm just going to show you an Explorer. What I did is, under my PC, there's a picture, a folder, and then I've created one that's called View Materials. Let me just show you, there's my pictures, and then View Materials. So what I did is, I dumped all my materials in this folder, my missing materials. So I know those three missing materials, they are in this folder. But although the path, as you maybe noticed, was on my E drive. So what I'm going to tell Caddie now is that when you're looking for a material, please go and look in that specific folder as well. So I'm going to say add, I'm going to go to this PC, it's going to be pictures, and we're going to say view materials. So then it will look under the subfolders as well. So I'm going to select the, let's call it the master folder. I'm going to say OK. So at the moment, Caddie will look under those two paths. So once it finds the missing material, it will then go and look under those two paths, and if they still can't find it, then Caddie will bring up a message and tell you there's some missing materials. So I'm going to say OK, I'm going to say OK, and let's reopen that file, and we render, and as you can see, no message, and I'm just going to bring it one click down, and we render. And there we go, done and dusted, and no missing materials. On the sun side, South African National Standards. For the new users, on the left hand side, if you go down in the root menu, you'll find the SANS, and in the sub-column, your first batch of commands will be your 10400, and if you go below that, it's your SANS water and lighting. So I'm going to click on the command, and for the existing users, you will notice that under your water, there's some new symbols added, as well as under your light and electrical. So we're going to start off with a ceiling light point. Now, as soon as you click on the symbol, as you can see, Caddie gives you a preview. So you're going to bring in the symbol from the preview. Below that, as you can ask Caddie to align to an object. You tell Caddie what is your watt for that particular light. The room. Now we're going to start off with the dining room. So let's go up to dining room. Your on-time hours a day. And you're going to left click on the preview, and Caddie will ask us position for the block. So I'm going to place my symbol, and the symbol is placed. So I also, while I'm in my dining room, I would like to add a strip light. So if I go down to LED strip light, you will see that the preview that you see from your symbol is exactly how it's going to place your symbol. So I would like to place it against the wall. I don't have to ask Caddie to align because the preview is horizontal. So I'm going to click on the symbol, and I can place my symbol. Now I'd like to go to my living room. So I'm going to change my room to living room. I would like to add a combo socket set in my living room. So I'm going to click on the symbol. Now this is a combo socket, the South African and European, with 2 USB plugs. So I'm going to click on the preview. Now it's exactly how I would like to align it, so I don't have to ask Caddie to align to an object. If I go down to, say, TV socket, now you will see my symbol. Let's call it at 12 o'clock. So now I'm going to ask Caddie to align symbol because I would like to use the wall as a reference. So I'm going to click on the symbol. Caddie will ask me now, indicate object to align to. I'm going to indicate the wall, and I can place my symbol. Now I'd like to go to my kitchen. So on the right hand side, let's go and select the kitchen. If you can't find the room, you can always update it in the extended data, but I'll show you now. So in my kitchen, I would like to add LED downlighters. So I'm going to select the symbol. I'm then going to ask Caddie to align symbol. Click on the symbol, and I can place my 2 symbols in my kitchen. Then I would like to go to the outside for security. So I'm going to ask Caddie for security light with sensor, and the room itself is going to be on the outside. So let's go down. Okay, let's go to the outside, and as you can see, it's horizontal, the symbol. I'm going to ask Caddie to align the symbol. Click on the symbol, and Caddie will ask us indicate object to align to. It's going to be my wall, and I can place my symbol. Remember, at any stage you can select the symbol, see for copy, hold down your tab key, and you can place your symbol horizontal to another wall. So now we're done with the symbols. Now I'd like to schedule them. So on the left hand side, you'll see there's a command that's called SANS lighting schedule. Caddie will ask us indicate object to schedule. So I'm just going to create a selection box, my symbols, and then Caddie will ask us indicate position for schedule table. So I'm going to left click, and as you can see, it is give me my type, the room, the power, on time hours, as well as day used. Now they all remain the same, but say for instance I would like to make a change to the LED strip light. I can either, if I know where's the strip light, I can go to the properties, or what I can do is I can select the table, right click, and I can ask Caddie under the schedule table, zoom to a specific object in schedule table. Caddie will ask us select schedule table item. I'm going to ask Caddie the LED strip light. It takes me to the symbol. Now if you select the symbol, you've got your properties, but under extended data, you can ask Caddie. Say for instance, my watt remains 5, but my on time, I'm going to change that to 3, and my days per year is going to be 200. So if I now am going to go back to my table, you will see that there will be a line through your table because your table is out of date. All you have to do is you can select the table, and in the object properties, you will see there's an option that says update automatically. So any changes that you're going to make to your symbols, then your table will update automatically. And as you can see, my LED strip light, my on time hours did change to 3, as well as my days used. Most of you will agree that when it comes with drawing, you can have a submitting drawing, you can have a working drawing, and you can have a presentation drawing. Now with this exercise, we're going to do a section through this 3D model, and then we're going to add a side tile on the roof itself. So we're going to start off with a vertical section, quick section, indicate start point, end point, E for end, and I'm going to look in this direction, and I'm going to place my section. Now, because it's still a section, so if I'm going to select it, Caddie confirm section 1. Now, in the previous versions, we introduced you the option that if you right click while the section is selected, you can go down to section and you can ask Caddie convert section to 2D line work. Once it's done, as you can see, now it converts the section to line work. Now, the command I'm going to show you now is an existing command, and that's under apps, SI Arc 2D. You go down to roof and it's tile inside view. Now, this is the new dialog. Now, if you look at the dialog that you had up to Caddie 28, is that you will see up to Caddie 28 you had only a purlin size and then a purlin end size, where in Caddie 29 you've got the tile spacing. Now, the tile spacing and the angle is getting from the symbol itself, from that block. And then you've got a button width, button depth, as well as an end button width and the end button depth. So let's make use of the new dialog. So I'm going to say browse, and I'm going to select the symbol. Now we're going to start off with the lateral long side. I'm going to say OK, and as you can see, the tile spacing has changed because, as I mentioned, it's from the symbol itself. I'm going to keep it 38 by, let's make that 38. I'm going to say OK, and Caddie will ask us indicate roof line. So I'm going to indicate the roof line, and as you can see there, place my symbol. Now, the first enhancement is that you will notice that if you click on the button, that is now a polyline. Previously, it was single individual lines. So let's make a copy of this line. See for copy. Let's place one over here, there, and there. Now, you can go back to the command, or you can just right click. If you go down to your recent commands, you will see that Caddie will always list the last 10 recent commands. So we're back in the same command. Now let's make use of a different symbol, and I'm going to start off with a double Roman. As soon as I'm going to say OK, I will look and see my tile spacing has changed to 301, and this time we're going to make it 38 by 35. That's my button width and depth. I'm going to say OK, and Caddie asks us indicate the roof line, indicate the line, and if I zoom in, let's just change the background so you can see the red, just make it white. So if I'm going to make use of diagonal dimension, there's my 38 size, and there's my 35. Once again, I can just right click, go down to recent commands, reactivate the command, and now I'm going to change to a slate. I'm going to say OK, and this time I'm going to keep my spacing the same, but have a look. My tilt angle is 4.5 at the moment and 200. If I'm going to say OK and I indicate the line, I'm going to press escape and I press spacebar to repeat previous command. Now I'm going to change that 200, I'm going to make that 300, and I'm going to change my angle to say 6 degrees. If I'm going to say OK and I'm going to indicate the line, immediately you can see the distance between your buttons as well as the gap. If I'm going to zoom in closer, you will see that now that 6 degrees is actually, if we go to annotate, 3-point angle, indicate first point, second point, and I'm going to snap to line. There's the 6 degrees that Caddie asks us in a dialog itself. So I'm zoom out a bit, there's the difference to a modification of your properties of the symbol itself. Lastly, we introduced the turning circles and the sweep path analyst and the application, civil. We go down to vehicle turning and you will find the commands. In Caddie 29, if you make use of the multidiscipline menu, you'll see that if you go down in the root menu to your civil application, you will find the commands in the subfolder. Now, if I'm going to activate the command, now this is your vehicle turning simulation, as that you will see that there's some new symbols added to the list. Now, vehicle standards may differ. For instance, if I'm going to take the ASTO-P, now that's an international standard for passenger vehicle, you'll see that the specification might vary from the, say, the Volhurter and Scootel, that's a pre-1990 passenger vehicle. So for the new users, we've got the ASTO series, we've got the Swedish. Now as soon as you're going to click on the vehicle itself, it gives you a preview as well as the specifications. So for our first exercise, you will see that the SI22 meter is a new vehicle added to the list, as well as the Scania, your fire track, that's a 6x4, and we're going to start off with a passenger vehicle. So I'm going to select the vehicle I want to use, and if I go to my configure graphics, you will see that there's pen colors that you can make use of. Now, because this is only a 2-axle vehicle, you're only going to see a green and a purple, because the green presents the front wheel path and the purple presents the wheel or the tractor rear wheel path. There's no hitch path involved because there's no trailer as well as no trailer wheel path. So I'm going to say OK, I'm going to say OK again, and Caddie will ask me, indicate the start of the polyline for the front left wheel path. So if I'm going to switch off my image, now as you can see there's two polylines, the green one as well as the cyan. So I'm going to start off with the green one. Caddie creates then the path, as you can see, and then as you left click, then you can place a presentation of your multi-view block on that path. Left click, we go around the circle and on the exit. So and if I zoom in, these are the two pen colors that I was referring to. If I go Control Z and I'm going to go back again, let's make use of the South Africa 22-meter truck. I say OK, Caddie asks us to indicate the front left wheel path, and as you can see, there we go. We do the analyst for us, and I can place my multi-view block, and if I'm going to zoom in and we're going to compare the settings, and I go back to configure graphics, now you'll see that the green presents my front wheel path, my purple presents my rear wheel path, and then my yellow is going to be my hitch path, and the red is going to be my trailer path. And now you can even create the animation of it. So I'm going to say Control Z, let's go to the sweep path. So we're going to start off with the passenger one. Let's go and select the vehicle again. I'm going to say OK, indicate the start point. I'm just going to place one symbol over there, and I'm going to make use of let's go Asto, this truck. I'm going to say OK, indicate the start point over here, place a preview over there. Then I'm going to ask Caddie to create the animation for me. So I'm going to say animate, I'm going to say add path, indicate the first polyline, indicate the second polyline, E for end. It picks up the two vehicles. There's a delay between frames, and I'm going to say animate, say OK, and as you can see, Caddie gives you an animation of your sweep path, and there is no collision. This is now on the 2D side. If you like to work with 3D, you can create a 3D animation as well. There's two vehicles that I'm going to make use of. So I'm going to say animate, say OK, and there they go. When it comes to twist your view, you probably make use of the constraint orbit command that's under your 3D views toolbar. So you click on a command, Caddie gives you explanation that if you click on an inside, it's the free orbit, and if you click on the outside, it's give you the roll view. So you're going to say OK, and if you left click on the outside, you can then twist your view. Alternatively, you make use of your shift and the wheel on the mouse, and you can also twist or orbit your view. Now the new enhancement in Caddie 29 is that I would like to set my new view at an angle perpendicular to this wall. So if I right click my model space, my CSM, we go down to view, you see there's a new command added that says view rotation. So I'm going to make use from set from 2 points because I don't know what's the angle of that wall. So I'm going to say set from 2 points. Caddie will ask me first point. So I'm going to zoom in, indicate the first point, indicate my second point, and as you can see now, Caddie twist my view perpendicular to those 2 points. So now if I would like to work on this side, say for instance your construction lines, etc., because your UCS is still set to normal, as you can go to manage, you go to UCS, you're going to ask Caddie to set your UCS from current view. So if I now make use of, say for instance, construction lines, say horizontal, then I can place my construction lines. If you know what is the angle, in this case I know that the angle should be 45 because I would like to work here on the left hand side. So all you have to do is, once again, you're going to right click in your model space, we go down to view, we go down to view rotate twist angle, and now I'm going to ask Caddie to set to angle. My angle is going to be 45 degrees. I'm going to say OK, and as you can see, it did twist my view. Now I showed you that you can set your UCS by using the manage, but you can also double left click on the UCS icon, M for more, and you will also find the command here that says set UCS from current view. And once again, you can either make use of construction lines. As you can see now, it's perpendicular to your view. I can make use of a custom menu. For that matter, I want to go perpendicular to that point. So that's when it comes to set your UCS at your current view. If you're familiar with rendering, sometimes you find that when you orbit or rotate your 3D model, just before you're going to hit render, it looks a bit skew. So if you right click inside, once again, your model space, we go down to view, go down to view rotation twist angle, you will see that there's an option that says reset to 0. And have a look and see what happens to the model. There you just twisted it, so it's set to 0. Another enhancement that clients ask for is when it comes to a helix. Now, as you can see here on the left hand side, that presents a ramp for that matter. My bottom radius is the same as my top radius, and on the right hand side is my bottom radius 5000 and my top radius is 1000. So we're going to recreate these two profiles. So the command I'm going to introduce to you is under draw. We go down to 3D parameters, and then you'll see there's a new command added that's called helix. So I'm going to click on the command. Caddie will ask us specify center point for base, so indicate the start point. Then you can indicate, but we want to be specific. Caddie asks us specify base radius, it's going to be 5000, and I press enter. Then Caddie asks us specify top radius, I'm going to make it 5000 as well. And as you can see, now I can drag it manually, or I can give it a height, and I'm going to say 20,000, and I press enter. So that's the first profile. Then I'm going to press spacebar, indicate the base point. I'm going to give it a radius of 5000 as well, but my bottom radius is 5000, my top radius I'm going to make that 1000. And as you can see, I can drag it manually, or we can be specific again, and I'm going to say make it the same height, 20,000. So there's the two helixes that we've created. So now we're going to ask Caddie to apply these two profiles to those helix. So the command is under draw, 3D solid, and we're going to ask Caddie to sweep. Caddie asks us indicate close to the curve. So I'm going to zoom in. This is the profile I would like to use. B for base point, because I would like to snap to, say for instance, the bottom over here, and then I'm going to indicate my helix. And then it creates the profile around the helix. Let's go spacebar. Caddie asks us indicate the profile. I'm going to say B for base point, snap to the center, and we're going to indicate the helix. There we go. And as we orbit it, you will see that on the left hand side, bottom and top radius the same. On the right hand side, bottom and top radius different. When it comes to solids, we're going to create this crankcase by using only about 4 to 5 commands. So all that you have to need is, if we go top view, is your section or a plan, and then on the left hand side a profile that you're going to sweep around the outside. Now on the left hand side, if we go to draw, up to Caddie 28, you add your 3D parameters, and now new to Caddie 29, you will find your 3D solids as well as your 3D surfaces. Now the solids and the surfaces depends, maybe you're getting drawings from another CAD system, they support the surfaces. Now Caddie support it as well as when it comes to solids. So we're going to start off with solids, and we're going to make use of the cylinder, we're going to make use of the box, we're going to use a sweep as well as subtract. So let's start with the cylinder. Caddie will ask us specify center point, so I'm just going to orbit it slightly, and I'm going to start in the middle. Then Caddie will ask us specify the radius is going to be 5, press enter, and now freehand I can either pull it up or I can give it a height. Now for this exercise I'm just going to make them let's say 100, and I press enter. Then I can select that cylinder, I can create new cylinders, but I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to say from there, from the middle, place one over here, place one there, and one over there. So there's my, let's call it the 4 holes, because we're going to subtract the cylinder from the profile itself. We can also create cylinders for the center circles. But what we're going to do is we're going to extrude these circles. So I'm going to go to draw, we go to 3D solids, and now we're going to make use of extrude. Caddie will ask us, indicate close to the curved region or M-text. So I'm going to click on the curve, and as you can see, either in a negative direction or in a positive direction, and I know that the height is going to be around about 90, so I'm just going to make it, let's say 100, and I press enter. Caddie asks us for that. Next object, once again, I'm just going to give it the direction, and I'm going to give it the value. The same as with the ports in the middle. Indicate the first one, direction as well as the height, and indicate the one at the back, direction and the height. So those are the objects that we're going to subtract from the profile. Now the profile that you're going to use is here on the left hand side. So you're going to go draw, 3D solids, and we're going to make use of the sweep command. I'm going to click on the command, and Caddie will ask us, indicate close to the curve. So I'm going to indicate the profile that I want to use, and then you'll see there's an option in the command line that says B for base point, because I would like to use the snap to the point to the bottom left. So I'm going to say B for base point. I'm going to indicate the point that I want to use as a reference, and then Caddie asks us, indicate the curve to sweep path. So I'm going to indicate the outline, and there's my profile. So because I still want to add the box, now the profile is in a way, so I can hide it. Just select the object, right click, lighting and display, and I can ask Caddie hide object. So now we're going to apply a box. So we go to draw, 3D solids, we're going to say box. Caddie will ask us specify first corner, is for snap, first point, last point, indicate the height. Now this one I'm just going to do freehand. As you can see, it's not necessary, you have to give it a value. I'm going to say up to there, I'm going to press escape. Now I'm going to ask Caddie to show all my layers, and all we have to do is now we're going to subtract the objects from each other. So the command is under draw, 3D solids, and we're going to go down to subtract. Caddie will ask us, indicate the 3D solid, now that will be the box, and then Caddie asks us, indicate the one that I would like to subtract. Then we can hit spacebar or previous command, indicate the first solid, indicate the solid that you want to subtract. Spacebar again. So now it's just the command is now like in a loop. You spacebar, indicate the first solid, indicate the solid that you would like to subtract, and as you can see, you indicate the first solid, indicate the solid that you want to subtract, and it creates the holes. There we go. By using only a few commands, by extract or sweep, you can create a crankcase. Now I'm going to show you how to work with the bolts and the nuts. So here on the right hand side, it's a profile presenting a flange, and the command itself is under draw. We go down to 3D solids, and at the bottom you will find the bolt and the nut. So we're going to click on the bolt command. Now the head types, we supply three. It's your countersink, your hex, as well as your socket head. On the right hand side is your diameter, it's going to be M10, your length, and then your shank. Do you want it to be full thread or only plain shank? So I'm going to start off with a countersink. I'm going to ask Caddie to give me a full thread when it comes to the shank itself. So I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to indicate the first point. Here we go, there's the first one. So orbit it. So I zoom in, as you can see, there's my countersink. Let's apply another two. The command and the draw, 3D solids. We go down to bolt. This time I'm going to make use of the hex. I'm going to keep everything the same. Let's make it a plain shank. We say OK, and we indicate the second point. And as you can see, here we go. And then the last one, that's going to be a socket head, and we give it a full thread. There we go. So now I can extrude my profile. So if I go to draw, 3D solids, I'm going to say extrude, F for freehand, indicate the close to the curve, and then I'm going to give it a height of say 30 millimeters. Press escape, and I can apply transparency to it. So to any object, once it's selected in my object properties, I'm going to ask Caddie give it a transparency of, let's say, 60%. I'm going to press escape, and here we go. So now we can add nuts to it as well. So first of all, let's move the UCS, let's put it on top. We can say offset because I know the height is 30. Say OK, and the command we're going to make use of is draw 3D solids. We go down to nut. Caddie will ask us indicate nut position. Now if I'm on 2D at the bottom, it means although I'm going to make use of my point snap in the middle, Caddie should place the nut on top because my UCS is at the Z height of 30 mm. So I'm going to press escape, R for regen, and there we go. And now I showed you that when it comes to extract and how to subtract, now you can even what we call under draw 3D solids, you will see that there's an option that says union. Now union means like it's going to unite. Now have a look for me and see what's going to happen with the bolt here at the back. As soon as I'm going to say union, Caddie will ask us indicate 3D solid, that's going to be this flange, and then Caddie asks us indicate 3D solid to combine with selected. So that's going to be my bolt here at the back. So I'm going to press escape. As you can see, now it actually unite. Only the bottom part, it removed it because the top part is now part of my first 3D solid. So you can either subtract or you can add. So let's go to draw 3D solids, and on this one I'm going to ask Caddie to subtract, indicate the solid that I want to make use of, that's the parent, and indicate the one that I want to subtract. That's it. And because it's transparent, as you can see, now what it did is it actually kept the hole inside my first 3D model, because we asked Caddie, take the first 3D model and subtract the second 3D model. And that's where it comes with your bolts and your nuts. With the schedule table of the rebar, you'll notice that there's two new columns added, and that is the weight in kilogram as well as in the cost. So if you just quickly recap on the command itself, I'm just going to start off with a rectangle, just freehand. So you can just do the exercise. So the command itself, you'll find it in application. We go down to steel, and then in the sub column we go down to auto rebar. There's also a custom rebar as well as a manual rebar. I'm going to use auto rebar. Caddie will ask us indicate first end of beam, indicate the second end of beam, and then Caddie picks up the length, you can see at the bottom. So now you can give it a mark number, you can give it a detail. Now in this case it's going to be a Y12. So then Caddie picks up the weight per meter, and you can have the cost per kilogram. The spacing is going to be 200 mm apart, and it's going to be either top one or bottom one, or you can custom. And then as you can see, your maximum bar length is 6 meters. I'm going to say OK, and Caddie will ask us indicate first end of beam run, indicate the second end of the beam run, and then Caddie asks us the position for the symbol and the position for the text, and then I can place it. So now I would like to schedule this forward area. So I'm going to go to application, we go to steel, and in the sub column we go to the last command that says schedule rebar. Caddie will ask us indicate objects to schedule. I'm going to indicate my floor area, and Caddie asks us indicate position for schedule table. And let's make it nice big. And as you can see, there's the shape code, the length, the weight, the cost, as well as in the total at the bottom. For this exercise, I'm going to make use of the classic menu. So on the left hand side, if you go all the way down to your survey, you'll see that your cadastral commands will be added to the list. Alternatively, you can go to application, you can go down to survey, and you'll find the commands over there as well. So the first exercise that we're going to do, because as you can see on the left hand side, you get your calculation commands, you'll get your drafting commands, as well as your consistency commands, and so forth. So our first exercise that we're going to use is on the right hand side. You will see that I've got my angle, my degrees, minutes and seconds, but I would like to add spacing in between so that I can stretch it over this area that's covered. So the command that I'm going to use on the left hand side, you will see that there's an option that says stretch a direction by adding space. So I'm going to click on the command, and Caddie will ask me indicate the direction to stretch. So all you have to do is you're going to left click on that angle, and as you can see, every time you left click, it adds a space. If I press escape, and then the command just left of it is the opposite, and that is to compress a direction. So I'm going to click on the command, every time I left click, it compresses it with one space. Then we've got the command below that, that says move a direction over a line and change 180 degrees. Now if you look at this degrees, minutes and seconds, 245, so it means it's from left to right, but I would like to change it 180 degrees. So I'm going to click on the command. Caddie will ask us, indicate the direction to swap 180 degrees. So as soon as I left click, you'll see it change to 65 because now it calculates it from right to left. Then another nice command is move a text in line. So if I'm going to click on the command, as you can see, this 125.9, I would like to move it, but I would like to keep it. I don't know what's the angle, so I cannot just make use of the tab key. But if I use the command itself, I click on the command, Caddie will ask us, indicate the text to move. I'm going to click on the text, and as you may notice, it creates like a ghost line, construction lines. It will keep it aligned till you place it. So that is when it comes to moving your text. Let's do some street commands. Now the first one I'm going to show you on the left hand side, you will see that there's an option that's called add street names. So what that means is Caddie will going to ask you indicate first line for street, indicate the second line for street, and it give the name street as well as then the width of the street. The same as when it comes to a connection. As you can see, here's a connection. So on the left hand side, the command itself says add street connection. Caddie will ask us indicate first point. So I'm going to indicate the first point, indicate the second point. It depends on the direction that you indicate. First point, second point, that's your degrees, minutes and seconds, as well as the width of the street. Then you can also add it to the street name itself. So on the left hand side, you will see that there's one that's called add width to street name. I'm going to click on the command. Caddie will ask us indicate first line for street, indicate the second line, and then Caddie will ask us indicate the street name. And as you can see, it add the width of the street to the street name. Now before we move on to the next command, I just want to recap on the existing command, and that is to add a prefix to existing text. So on your left hand side under annotate, you go down to text, and in a subcolumn you go down and you find and replace text. In this dialog, my selection is going to be a polygon, so I'm going to define with a polygon, and my prefix is going to be ERF space earth. So it's going to be a prefix. I'm going to say OK, and Caddie will ask us draw clockwise polygon around the area. So I'm going to start off over there, and I go down over to here. E for end, Caddie confirms. Alpha occurrences found, regen to remove virtual markers. So I'm say OK, R for regen, press escape, and as you can see it, add the prefix. So the next command I'm going to introduce to you is on the left hand side. If you're going to go to your calculations, in the subcolumn, you see there's a command that's called convert arcs to chords. So I'm going to click on the command, and we're going to make use of indicate. And then you've got an option either chord length or number of chords. So the first exercise is going to be number of chords. Caddie asks us number of chords. Let's make them 8. I'm going to press enter, and Caddie asks us indicate arc to convert. So I'm going to indicate the arc, and as you can see, it converts the arc to chord. The second exercise is the same command. I'm going to use indicate, but this time I'm going to ask Caddie for a chord length. My chord length is going to be 7000 because I'm in millimeters. Press enter. Caddie asks us indicate arc to convert. Indicate the arc, and if you're now going to measure between 2 points, first point, second point, you will see in the command line Caddie confirms 7000. The next command is transverse related, so we remain under the calculation option. So we're going to click on the command that says transverse and adjust. Caddie will ask us indicate start of transverse. I'm going to be a freehand. Caddie asks us the distance. I'm going to say 50 meters. And I press enter. Caddie asks us the direction. Now my survey is set up, so to go to the right it's going to be 270 degrees. And I'm going to press enter. Then Caddie will ask us for a name. So I'm going to say A, and I press enter. Now I'd like to go down, so my distance is going to be 50, I'm happy with 50 meters, and my direction is going to be down, that's going to be 0 degrees. Press enter, and my name is going to be B, so I just press enter. Now I want to go to the left, but this time I'm not going to say 50 meters, I'm going to say 49. As you can see, I'm making a mistake for a reason. So I'm going to say the meter is 49, my direction, I'm going to go to the left, it's going to be 90 degrees, and that's going to be C. I press enter. And now I would like to go up. So once again, I'm not going to say 50 meters, I'm going to say 49 meters. My direction is going to be 180 degrees, and that is going to be number D. And I press enter. And then Caddie will ask us, 0 to N. So I'm going to type in 0, press enter, and Caddie will ask us, do you want to adjust the transverse? I'm going to say yes, and as you can see, Caddie will ask us, indicate point to adjust transverse to. So I'm going to zoom in, S for snap, and I'm going to indicate. Now have a look and see what's going to happen with the degrees, minutes and seconds. As soon as I indicate the point, if I zoom out, press escape, and then as you can see, Caddie will do the adjustment or the correction for you. With the previous launches, we introduced the GIS. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to show you that when it comes to your contours, we're going to make use of an area in Hawaii. So let's go to search. We're going to say Hawaii. Okay, it picks up in the system. I'm going to say OK, and we're going to make use of the round projection, the 3857. I'm going to say OK. So now my CRS is set. Caddie will ask us for the radius around Hawaii. 35 kilometers, that's fine. So now my CRS is set. So the source that I want to add now is that if I go to my source, we showed you that if you right click, you can go add data source. Then there's different ways of adding information. It can be either you can create your own MySQL database, or it can be from a shapefile. Now I'm going to focus on this ArcGIS map feature service. Now if I use that option, Caddie will ask you for a catalog URL. Now that link is normally available from your municipality or from the government. Now I'm just going to make use of the normal cartoon national map. So if I'm going to say query, because I know this is in Hawaii, Caddie will give us what's the information available on that server. So if I'm going to expand the contours, because that is what I'm looking for, you will see that there is number 6, and my type is going to be polyline. So let's just give it a name. I'm going to call it Hawaii. And it's catalog URL. I've got number 6 that I'm going to make use of. As you can see at the bottom, that is what it's going to make use of. I'm going to say OK, and on my right hand side now you can see it is added to the list. Now the globe itself is to switch on and off what's on the layer, and then we go to the gear. Now the gear, that is your property, so I'm going to ask Caddie to bring it in pen number 2, as well as I can add a little bit of transparency to it. Now if I'm not going to make use of the option to put the contours on a specific height, as you will see it's not set. So if I'm going to say OK, Caddie will refresh this layer, and then you will see that everything should be flat. There we go. So now we can see the contours, and let's bring in an image in the background, just so you can see that this is in Hawaii. There we go. So what I'm going to show you now is if I'm going to face it from the front, you will see that everything is flat. So I'm going to just go back to top view. I'm just going to switch off my image in the background. I'm going to say Control A. I'm going to press delete, and if I go back to my Hawaii setting itself, I'm going to ask Caddie to set the height from the property. Now the property itself is called contours. So I'm going to say OK. So what that means is Caddie will, as soon as I'm going to refresh the layer, Caddie will look at that specific field, and then it uses the Z height, and it places those contours on the correct Z height. So if you're now just going to zoom in, and as I'm going to orbit it, as you can see, there's your different Z heights. Let's go info on one of those, and as you can see, the field that's called contour, it picks up the height. So this particular contour has got a Z height of 3,200 meters. Another enhancement that's been added to the GIS is the option to convert the GeoTIFF file to a shapefile, so we can then use it in a model space. Now it depends on what is your source that you make use of. I'll just make use of DEFRA site. Now once you find the location, you will see that there will be a tile, and then you can download this zip file, because this tile consists out of a zip file because there's LiDAR information in it. And if you open the TIFF file itself, then this is how the TIFF file looks like. So now I'm going to show you how to convert this TIFF file to a shapefile. So the command that you're going to make use of is under application, we go down to GIS heat map, and then we go down to GeoTIFF to shapefile. Caddie asks us the input file, so we just have to browse and indicate that TIFF file. And as you can see, the file size is 16 meg, quite a huge file. And then Caddie asks us output type. We're going to ask Caddie to create contours. My band number is 1. interval is going to be every 2 meters, that's the Z height, and then I'm going to ask Caddie to create a field called elevation, and my offset starts at 0. If I start at 1, it's going to be 135. My output file, that's where you're going to create this shape file now. So I'm going to browse. I'm just going to create a new blank folder. So I'm going to say new folder. I'm going to keep it new folder, that's fine. And inside that folder, I'm going to say new shape. I'm going to say save. Caddie will give us, because I'm asked Caddie show log file at completion. So if I'm going to say OK, Caddie will tell us Caddie is converting the file in the background. You will receive a message when the conversion is complete. So I'm going to say OK. And as you can see, Caddie comes up with my log file. Done. So I'm going to close it. Caddie confirmed once again, shapefile created from GeoTIFF file, and I'm going to say OK. Now to make use of that shapefile, you can either add it by adding it as a file, or you can add it to your MySQL database. So I'm going to show you how to add it to your file. So I'm going to right click inside and I'm going to say add data source. The option that I'm going to make use of is a file, because we've created the shapefile. I'm going to say add, and then we're going to give it a name. Now I know it's Eton, it's in England. My source file, so we're going to browse to that shapefile. Now if you look at that folder, because we've created a new folder called new folder, in that folder itself you will see that there's not only a shapefile, but if I go star.star, you will see that the project file is in that folder as well. So we're going to indicate the shapefile, and Caddie will pick up the project file in that same folder as well. So I gave it a name. I'm going to indicate the shapefile. Caddie requests a project file that we find in that same folder. I'm going to say OK, and it's added to the right hand side. So all I have to do is I can just set my CRS now. My CRS is set to 27700. I'm going to say OK, because this is a data information. I can just go and I'm going to load all the information. And now Caddie show you on the bottom left hand side, loading the shapes. And there we go. From a GeoTIFF file, converted to a shapefile, and the shapefile is now, they are like contours. If I go to polyline, and as I mentioned, if I go to info and I select one of those contours, Caddie will give us your elevation. In this case, it's 86 meters. When it comes to saving to PDF, now you're all familiar with set up your sheet and create your viewports, but what I want to bring on your attention is that when there's transparency involved, as you can see, there's some transparency on my trees, as well as in the background, some hatching. So if you go to my sheet setup, you will see that on the bottom right hand side, there's an option that says plot transparency. Now, although you're going to say save as PDF, Caddie looks at what is your current sheet setting. So my plot transparency is switched on. I'm going to say OK. And the command we're going to use is under File, Save Other Export, and we go down to Save as PDF. Now, first of all, as you can see, it's a complete new dialog. So under the Browse, we're just going to give it a name, and I'm going to call this one Drawing 1. I'm going to say Save. Now, on the left-hand side, now as you can see, this is your paper size, but I'm going to switch off Zoom to Extends mode, because as I mentioned, Caddie looks at your current sheet settings. I know this is a A1, so I'm not going to use Zoom Extends. Then when it comes to your fonts, I'm going to switch off to ask Caddie the SHX text as geometry, because what that means is the Arial font that you can use. If you're going to zoom into that Arial font, you will see that the quality is just so much better if it's switched off. So I'm going to keep this first exercise basic, and I'm going to say export. And let's have a look. And here we go. And as you can see, my transparency on the trees itself and with the hatch at the back is exactly what I'm looking for. Now let's go to a second drawing. Now on this second drawing, we're going to add what we call a watermark on the drawing itself. So if I go to File, Save Other Export, we go down to Save as PDF. First of all, you're going to give it a name. Call this one drawing number 2. I'm going to say Save, and now you will see, as I explained to you, I'm going to switch off those, because now we're going to focus on more options. So I'm going to go to more option. Now that's where you can change your DPI. You can increase or decrease the DPI, but what we're going to focus on is your measuring option. In other words, if you're going to add or if you're going to open it in Adobe, you will see that you can measure it in between points. And then at the bottom left hand side, there's an option that's called plot stamp. So I'm going to click on plot stamp. You can either make use of text or you can make use of an image, like for instance the company logo. So I'm going to call this one demo drawing. On the right hand side, that is my font. It's going to be red and my angle is going to be 45. And I'm going to say OK. So I've added the plot stamp and I've added the measuring option. And I'm going to say OK. Now if we just recap on this first table, is that you will see that the export solid hatches is using a PDF path. Your export gradient hatches using a bitmap export, and then your export other hatches using vectorizing instead of bitmap. So I'm going to say export and let's have a look. And there we go. As you can see, there's the watermark, and if you're going to zoom into the text, as you can see, that's the quality that you get from saving to PDF. So if you're going to print to PDF, the quality won't be that good as to save to PDF. And now let's go to a third drawing. Now, drawing number 3, you will see that we make use of a 3D model. Now, as you can see, there's no sheet setup, only a model. So the difference is that when you're going to save to a PDF, is that first of all, you're going to ask Caddie to enable your PRC. That means that's for your product representation compact. So, and my zoom to extents mode, it's going to make use of those width and height because there's no sheet setup. So I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call this one drawing number 3. I'm going to say save, and I'm going to say export. And if you look at the PDF, as you can see, here's the PDF. So now I can orbit it. As you can see, all the components is inside. But what I want to show you is that let's go to this angle. I'm going to make use of what they call cross-section properties. Now this is in Adobe itself. I'm going to say enable, and it's going to be on my x-axis. And as you can see, the sliding bar at the bottom, as I'm going to drag it, it will update. If I go back a bit, I can ask it to show transparency, switch off the transparency, and that's the enhancement in Caddie 29. And here you can see now the advantage of saving your model to a PDF. And then you can apply security to your PDF file as well. So if I go back to this sheet, and go File, Save Other Export, Save as PDF, we're going to give it a name. I'm going to call it security. I'm going to say save. I've explained the font as well as the zoom, and then in the middle you've got your security option. Now you've got a user password and an owner password. So let's add a password to it. And I only want to give access to the user or the client to allow print all. So all the rest I'm going to switch off. As you can see, there's an option that says allows copy, extract text and graphics, allow assemble the document, allow add, modify annotation, fill in form fields. So at the end of the day, you can decide what access you want to grant the user. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to say export. And if we now go to that folder, we create the file. I'm going to double click. Adobe will bring up an option to apply a password. I'm going to say OK, and as you can see, it opens the PDF.
Thank you, Charles, for a great presentation, and thank you all involved in getting the launch ready for today. As always, talk to us and we can make a better product for everyone to use. Download and install your Caddie by following the link below. Call us if you need any assistance.